Hey, gun people. I gotta say gun because people have been accusing me of calling them dumb for hate dumb people. I'm gonna do a crazy cop story on the next video after this one. This one I'm gonna talk a little bit about not really the crooked side, but how law enforcement. A lot of my videos are on playing with law enforcement about how we let me turn this light on here in the fan. On how we kind of play the system a little bit. So, what's the difference between a subpoena and a search warrant? Both things allow you to take things per court order. So a subpoena and a search warrant is a court order. Any DA can issue a subpoena. He's an officer of the court. I think any attorney, I'm not sure, like a defense attorney, if they're representing a case, they can also issue subpoenas. And a subpoena is signed by them. It doesn't go in front of a judge. It's basically a lawyer saying, I need this for my case. You're ordered to give it. And it's the same as a court order. The only difference is the judge doesn't have to review it. There's not a probable cause statement. It's just basically because they're attorneys, they can send a subpoena out and say, we need this for our case. So, when cops are trying to get information, street cops and cops working for police departments, they don't have a lawyer on staff or a lawyer that works that can issue a subpoena. So they have to go to the DA's office, district attorney, city attorney, whatever they call it, and get them to issue a subpoena if they want to get something without a search warrant. Now, a subpoena is a lot easier than a search warrant. Again, you don't need judge review, you don't need DA review, you don't need a probable cause, you don't need a hero sheet, you don't have to justify it. Once you do a search warrant, you serve it, you have to do what's called a return. You have to return back to the judge that issued the warrant within 10 days with a copy of the stuff you got, and then it becomes a public document. So, all search warrants are public documents unless it hasn't been completed. And here's a trick that a lot of cops use. When you're serving a search warrant, I'm required, if I kick your door in, serve a search warrant, you're not home, I search, I take what I take, I'm required to leave a copy of the search warrant. If you're home, I'm required to give you a copy of the search warrant. Now that search warrant is your copy, and I'm required to do that, but it's not a public document yet. It doesn't become a public document until it's officially been served and finished. And it's not finished until the cop does the return search warrant saying what I took. Then it becomes finished. So what cops would do is, one, we can get a court order to delay notice of the search warrant. If I'm searching your phone records, let's say I want to find out who you called in the last month, and you're the target of my investigation, or you're the friend, whatever. Somehow I've connected a nexus that made you part of my investigation, and I want your search, or I want your phone records. I can do a search warrant, but because I have to give you service when I serve that search warrant, the way to get around that, the exemption, exception, exigency, whatever you want to do it, is I can say it's an ongoing investigation, and I can ask the court to say, I don't want notification served, I want 30 days before I have to notify, or I want 60 days. So that's one way to get out of serving you a warrant, because technically, if somebody does a warrant to get your phone records, the service provider is supposed to tell you, per their contract, hey, the police served a search warrant on us for your records and we gave it to them. So when we do that warrant, we go, if I'm doing it to Verizon, you are hereby ordered by the court to disclose all cell phone calls, incoming, outgoing from this date to that date, all cell towers used, maps of cell towers, any text communications or voicemails that you have on record for this time period. You are also ordered not to disclose the notice of this warrant or the existence of this warrant per court order because of an ongoing investigation. So now they get out, that protects them from not telling you. So that's one way to delay it. Now, you're going to know if I serve a search warrant on you because I went out, I did a search warrant, you're going to read the search warrant. I mean, I might have a couple search warrants posted. I know I've got the search warrant when they did Michael Jackson's doctor. I have a copy of that. I might post it on my website so somebody can read it if they want to. But search warrants become public documents as soon as they're finished. So what cops would do if I'm doing an ongoing investigation, and I don't want it, because you can't get that failure to notify indefinitely. It's supposed to be that word that always comes up in legal work, reasonable. What's a reasonable amount of time for your investigation? So, how long does it take to do an investigation? How long do you need to cover it? Doesn't matter. If I don't want my search warrant becoming a public document, I don't file a return. Now, according to the rules, I've got 10 days to file a return. But the problem with that is, again, I talk about the system protects the system. The system doesn't enforce the laws on the system. It only applies to the peon taxpayers. So, because I'm working for the courts, the DA, I'm in the system, I'm in the government, when I serve a search warrant, if I don't do my return in 10 days, there's no recourse. There's no problem. The only way I'm going to get in trouble is if the judge takes a personal interest, which they have more things to do, and calls me and says, hey, you did this warrant on this date, it's been 3 weeks, and I don't have a return. Show up in my courtroom, tell me why I don't have a return, or have that returned to me today. So, but judges never do that. I mean, I know guys that haven't done a return in 6 months because they don't want that document going public. They don't want the crooks to know, they don't want anybody else to know, but if they get it sealed, and I did a lot of warrants where I sealed the information, this warrant is sealed, so it couldn't be released. Because what happens if you're working multiple suspects and you arrest one dude because you can't wait, you know, that's why they usually do these raids where they arrest everybody. Because if you arrest one person, then his lawyer is going to get a copy of the warrant, he's going to know all the facts, he's going to know everything, he's going to know all your informants, he's going to know all your secrets, and his lawyer is going to be able to call all your friends and go, hey, my client told me to call you, and here's how they caught him, so be careful on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, here's the warrant. And so, that's why cops do that. Now, are cops breaking the law when they do that? Yeah, they are. They aren't following the rules. Are they doing it for malicious or personal gain? No. Should that matter? You know, it's one of those situations where I'm always talking about people are very quick to judge cops about being crooked, dirty, untrustworthy, lying, and doing all these things, but when you're working within a system, it's very difficult. So, now we're going to switch to subpoenas. A subpoena is so easy to do. If you can get a DA just to give you a subpoena, and as a DA investigator, we could actually issue subpoenas on the spot because we were kind of an agent of the DA. Now, there was quite a bit of concern on whether this was legal. A lot of DAs says, I don't want you using that because it's not legal and we're going to lose it. But I had forms in my car, and when I went to the medical office and I'm doing a child abuse or endangerment or domestic or whatever I'm doing that I need medical records, you know, a victim of a shooting or whatever, and I go in there to get them and they go, hey man, sorry, I can't help you. I go, hey, I got an investigation. Can I just get, nope, can't give you no copies without a subpoena or a search warrant. So I go, okay, I can get you a subpoena. I run out to my car, I scratch out the subpoena, I walk back in and go, here's your subpoena. And they go, okay. They have something to put in a file. It's all a big game. As long as they got something to file, they don't care if it's real. I don't care if it's real. The courts don't care if it's real because I've got the information. I'm doing my investigation. The only time that it would come up that that subpoena was illegal or unauthorized would be if I found something that I wasn't entitled to, which would go into inevitable discovery. When cops do things and they get evidence the wrong way, if I go search, there's a few principles in law enforcement that most cops know. Fruits of the poisonous tree. If you start off bad, anything that leads you to is bad and going to be thrown out. So if I do something wrong, if I enter a house illegally, any evidence I find is wrong. And the theory of the fruits of the poisonous tree is if your tree's bad, any fruits that's produced by that tree is bad. So when I go in a house illegally, and then I find stuff, anything I find is illegal because I entered on a bad tree, the fruits of the poisonous tree. So when you're talking about fruits of the poisonous tree, if I was to issue this subpoena and I got something that I couldn't get any other way, and the court says, you know what, that subpoena you filled out in a car isn't authorized, I know you do it, I know it's standard practice, and I know some DAs allow you to do it, and I know you've been getting evidence that way for 6 years and it's standard operating procedure, it's not legal, therefore I'm throwing out that evidence that you found, and I'm throwing out everything that evidence led you to. So if I do one of those subpoenas, I get something, it leads me to the murder weapon, it leads me to the gravesite, it leads me to the crime scene with the bloody glove and whatever. I lose all that because of the bad subpoena. And that's where the fruits of the poisonous tree. Whatever that subpoena gives me, I lose. Now, the flip side of that is called inevitable discovery. So when a cop's doing a case, if I get something the wrong way, but later on we can prove that I would have got it anyway, it falls under inevitable discovery and we can get it in anyway. So, and I'm trying to think of a case where I've had to use that. I didn't have a whole bunch of evidence sewn out. I can only remember one case of a radio which was BS. I'll talk about that in another video. But anyway, if you get something and you need to get it in, and because they quashed it or said, you know what, we're excluding this, it's excluding because you broke the rules. You didn't do something right. You didn't follow the law and procedure. You knew you did something wrong. Therefore, we're not going to let you use the evidence found to punish you so you don't do it again. Well, we can always get it in the back door through inevitable discovery. So if any other part of the case would have led a reasonable investigation to that piece of evidence, we're going to get it in through inevitable discovery. So, on a subpoena, the problem with a subpoena and why people don't use them a lot is technically, and I've seen some DAs will issue them when there's not a case. Technically, before a subpoena, a DA can issue a subpoena for evidence, there has to be a case filed. So when a cop is working a case and he hasn't arrested a suspect and he hasn't turned a case over to the district attorney's office for charging, no subpoena can be issued on that, which is why a lot of street cops don't use subpoenas. They have to use search warrants. However, if you can't get a search warrant and you don't think you can, if you can talk the DA into charging the case without the evidence, knowing that he can issue a subpoena without a court order, then he can issue a subpoena and you can get the evidence that way. Again, we're back into morals, rights, wrong. Is it wrong? Yes. Should it be done that way? No. Is it playing with the rules? No. But is anybody doing it for personal gain? No. Are we doing it? Maybe the DA's doing it for personal gain so he can get a guilty verdict. Cops don't really care how many people get off or get on. We're out there doing a job, we arrest them, once put them in jail, it's pretty much over and we move on. But the DAs want their record, and they want their convictions, and they want the big high-profile media, you know, so I can get out there and brag about my case when I'm running for politics later. So, you know, again, is it wrong? Yes. Is it done wrong? Yes. Is a lot of things done wrong? Yeah, but the way cops are always made out to be this bad, evil, no good, you can't trust them, it's not because of personal gain. And I know a lot of people are going to say it doesn't matter. You should have integrity, you should have honesty, you should do... Well, you know, if every cop did that, there'd be a whole lot more guilty people running around and a whole lot more victims. Because you have to work within a system and figure out how to manipulate the system, because that's how we're taught to do it, from the attorneys, the lawyers, the judges, the courts, the Supreme Courts. Everybody tells you how to mess with words and definitions and change it to where truth becomes lost. So you do what you have to do to get the people in jail. Are cops doing it for personal gain? No. Are cops and DAs doing this to put innocent people in jail? No. The problem is, the more you do something like that, every inch you step over that line, it becomes easier to take that next inch to step over the next line, and then before you know it, it's out of control, and you have a bunch of power-hungry people doing whatever they want, ignoring all the rules, justifying it for the means to the ends, and then you get the system to where it's broken, and I don't know if we're that far from where that is right now, but I got a couple emails on subpoenas and search warrants, so I wanted to clear that up. It's semi-interesting to me, maybe not to you guys. Hopefully that helps. Smokey, what are you doing? My kitty just came in.